All right, India ink. We are going to show some value today using ink, which is very watered down paint, which means it drips, it splatters, and it will get in places you don't want it to get if you're not careful. So please make sure that you are moving slowly with your brush and not fast, because it will just start dripping everywhere. And keep your paint kind of near where your painting is. So the first thing you're going to do in your value scale here, we've got lightest to darkest. You already have the darkest. So just using your paint, starting easy, you're going to show me the darkest value, pure black. That's what India ink is. India ink can also be used to dye fabric. So it's just, like I said, it's a very versatile ink that you can use for so many things. Now, to get your lightest, you already have black on your brush. So you can use your water cup to just drip. Please don't pour. Good. It never ends up well. So just kind of, it's tedious. It takes a while. Or maybe even just use a bigger brush that can hold more water. But get yourself a nice little puddle of water. And then it looks like the little bit of left of India ink made it a perfect light gray. So that's going to probably be my lightest. It's always good to start with both ends and then work my way. And in the video, it probably doesn't look like much, but in real life, I can see it does. So I'm gonna add just a little bit. Little goes a long way, very highly concentrated. So if I wanna make it a little bit darker, I just get a teeny, teeny little dip, and there's my lightest, because you still have some in between. You want this to almost look white, and in the video, it probably just looks white. So now I'm gonna add a little bit more. So I'm gonna go up to this medium. I probably did more than just a little bit. So let's see, I'm gonna test this out. Yep, that looks good. So that's gonna be my almost dark one, my medium dark. All right, so I need my medium light, so I need to go a little bit lighter because I went too dark. So probably just make another puddle and start from there. It's hard to, you can't really go backwards, you can only go forwards as far as making it darker, not lighter. Doesn't really work that well. So there we go. So that's why we play around, because if I just said, hey, let's paint a landscape using several values, and you went straight to that step, you really wouldn't know exactly how that was gonna look and how to do that. So today is all about practicing and figuring that out. All right, got my nice values. All right, so wet on wet is a technique that we use in watercolor as well. You're gonna use water first, and you're just gonna paint wet and then paint on top wet. So that's where it gets its name, wet on wet. And then you just take your India ink. I'm just gonna go with the purely saturated one, and you just tap it in there, and you could watch the color just kind of blend, okay? So wet on wet is kind of fun, especially if you have puddles, and you can turn your paper sideways and just watch it kind of drip and see what it does. Kind of has a mind of its own. It's really cool. So, looks like an oil spill. All right, salt. Doesn't work very well with India ink, but we're gonna try it anyway. You need something that's not too dark, so don't go fully saturated, go somewhere medium. And it needs to be wet, so don't let it dry. India ink dries pretty fast, so have your salt shaker ready, and then right next to it, shake some on there, and leave it. The key is to not go back and paint over top of it. You've messed up the whole mission. All right, you'll be back to, it'll be nothing. Okay, splatter. Don't use the fully saturated, because it'll look great that way, but I'm just worried that you'll spray yourself, and that is going to be extra dark. And you just need a brush that holds a little bit more. I'm using a very small brush, so I'll go back to my medium to large brush. And you just hold your finger and tap on it. And that's how we splatter. There's a couple of different ways to splatter. See, and yes, if you get it on your finger, it stains your fingers like Easter egg dye. So even after you wash it today, your fingers will still have that stain. It'll just come off in the shower. All right, lines. So much fun. Your lines, very simple. Just practice using the concentrated kind. Pretend like you're working with calligraphy and a feather. Here we go, and just play around with lines and see how much fun that can be. All right, you can practice writing.
Miss Lay.
Okay, And then lastly, I want you to practice trees. So you're going to create a wash. A wash is when you take your background and you create a wash of just a lighter color. And then you're going to practice adding your trees. Usually you wait for the wash to dry, so give it some time to dry. I would actually do your wash first thing as soon as you get your ink today. I should have done that, because you'll see why when you start adding trees, it'll start to bleed wet on wet. So, and you can see I'm going to play around with some different types of trees. Okay, so there's one. I'm going to do a medium-sized one. Maybe I want to try a tree that has branches. Okay.
You want to do it when it is wet or when it's not?
You want to do it when it's dry. But if you end up having to do it while it's wet on this practice, then that's okay, because that's what practice and experimentation is about. Okay? So play around with the different types of trees and see how that works. Okay?